Hi friends, it's Miss Mindy with another art lesson. Today we're doing the second part of an artist study of Henri Matisse. Today is a continuation of our artist study on Henri Matisse, who lived at the turn of the 20th century and who they continue to call the master of color because of his excessive use of color and different shapes. Henri Matisse was born and lived in northern France, which you can see by the red star, and we live across the Atlantic Ocean in the blue star. Matisse's life was categorized by two separate events, both which he found himself in a hospital bed. But in the first lesson, we talked about how God used that situation for good, ultimately, because when he was in the hospital in his 20s, he had appendicitis, he noticed that the person next to him had a paint set. So that was when he first got his first paint set, and he started doing a lot of painting. And that's shown by the painting on the left. The one on the right is very different, and that was created towards the end of his life when he found himself again in a hospital bed, confined to a wheelchair mostly, and with cancer. He didn't have the opportunity that he had before to use all of the paints that he had previously. So instead he decided to do what he called drawing with scissors, where he created different color papers, because in the 30s and 40s they didn't have all the access to construction paper that we do with all different colors. And so he would create different colored papers. We could see here he kind of used like a watercolor technique to create these bold colors. And then he would cut them out from the confines of his wheelchair or bed, and his assistant, shown on the left, would help place them where he wanted to. A lot of Matisse's artwork was very large murals on the wall. And so she would stand at the wall and ask, do you want it here, here, here? And she would help place them and move things around until they got to their final position, where he would finally glue them together then. This is an example of one of Matisse's pieces where he would draw with scissors. You could see again a lot of the very bold colors, and very organic shapes that look like they might happen more naturally, and not as many of the jagged lines and edges. This is an example of one of the murals that he did, and you can really see, especially when you see the woman in the portrait, how big it is compared to a person. And something I'd like to point out with this is you can see how there's a lot of mirror images. We call that symmetry, where if you put one side, a blob of paint on one side of the paper, push another sheet of the paper on it, that it would be symmetrical when you took it back up. Just like a butterfly's wings, if you cut a line down the middle of the butterfly, it would be the same on the left as it would be on the right. This is an example of the artwork we will be creating today. We'll be using pieces of construction paper, scissors, and a glue stick in order to create lines of symmetry in our picture, and we're going to glue these papers right inside of our sketchbook. These are the materials we'll be using for our Matisse-inspired artwork. We'll need some scissors, a glue stick, at least 3 sheets of colored paper, and our sketchbook. Now, as we do this project, I want us to be thinking about lines of symmetry. Now, in order to create the same image on both sides of the paper, we're going to take and fold the construction paper in half. You can do it Hamburg way, like this, horizontally, or you can also do it vertically, hot dog way, and you can change it up. When we do this, we're going to cut once and get the same image on 2 different pieces of paper while also connected. Let's see, I'll do this one hamburger way. Once we have our sheets of paper folded, and you can use more than 3, but I'd like you to try to start with 3. We're going to use our scissors, and we're going to start cutting on the folded part of the paper, because whatever I cut then will be connected in the middle. And again, Matisse did very organic circles, lines, to kind of make it look like it might have happened naturally like that. We have this, and we have this. And if you look at that and you say, oh, maybe I want to make some holes in the middle, kind of like a snowflake. Fold it in half again. You can make circles, you can make lines. We're drawing with scissors. We're not even using a pencil to do this. Maybe I'll do a little circle in the middle. You can keep on cutting. Matisse kept making changes to his picture until he got it right where he wanted, and then he would glue it down at the end. I'm going to make another. And sometimes when I start, I don't even really know where my scissors are going to take me. Each of our pieces of artwork should look very different from one another. This one I have it connected only by one side. Don't always know where my scissors are going to take me, but it's just kind of fun to just kind of roll the paper around in your fingers. Your piece of artwork will look very different from everybody else. I might start with just my shapes because I have a small sketchbook. You're welcome to use these papers on your project too, especially if you have a larger piece of paper in your sketchbook. Very organic, very colorful lines. You might say, I might want to make an ocean scene or a sky or rainbow. But the fact that these are symmetrical, they show symmetry. It makes me think about in the Bible when God says that we were created in His image. We were created with the same features that God has, which makes me think, especially when He sent His Son Jesus to live on earth, that He had a head and a face, arms, legs, that we were created to look just like Him. And our lives should also be a mirror to how God lived as well. To have joy, hope, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, all of the fruits of the Spirit that show that we are a part of and still living with God. Because we were created in His likeness. We were created to mirror how He is. So I'm going to begin to take some of these shapes. And again, we don't use glue until the very end. And I'm going to kind of see how I might want to put them on my paper. You can change your mind as many times as you want. Might use that for kind of like my frame. These remind me of peppers. Pepper slices. That reminds me of a mask. The whole makes me feel like I kind of want to put that in the middle of my paper. Sometimes you might think that your picture looks kind of like a sea creature. I can see a lot of that too. You see all of the symmetry? All of these images are a mirror image of the other piece. The nice thing about not gluing right away is I can change my mind as many times as I want. To move things around until I feel like I've got it in a position where I'm happy with it, and then I can start gluing it down. There's a lot of color in my picture. Then I can even take some other papers and I can make some different shapes. These don't all have to be symmetrical. They have symmetry. You don't have to fold the paper in half again. I'm going to see what I could create with this circle. I'm going to create kind of a swirl. And the unique part about my swirl is that you're going to be able to see all the spaces in between. Right now you can't really see a lot of that. So I'm going to do something to change it. I'm going to cut a small piece of swirl off the edge as I go around again. This is going to be able to let me see the full dimension of the swirl when it's on my picture. It'll also give me another smaller one that I could put on my picture if I'd like to. I'm not using a pencil to draw. I'm using scissors. That was a technique that Matisse came up with. See how you can see all of the holes in between? And I've got another one too. I feel like that adds a little bit more dimension to my paper. Okay, now I'm ready to glue. Then once you're done gluing, you can take your sketchbook, turn it upside down, make sure that you've glued in all of the pieces that you put on, and you can enjoy your Matisse-inspired drawing with scissors artwork. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.